Hello, 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 and welcome back to The 12. This is a show about the Women's Super League, aka the highest division of women's football in England. We're here to discuss all things WSL, both on and off the field. Each week, we'll be breaking down games, showcasing stars, and highlighting important stories surrounding the game. My name is Deepti. I'm here with my co hosts Mark, Tombaum, and Treb. And this week, we have a special episode because it's about Black History Month. If you are not aware, for some reason, February in the United States is Black History Month. And so we decided we thought like we should do a special episode, especially because all three of my co-hosts here are wonderful Black men. And so I wanted to like do a sort of panel style and just ask them questions about Black culture, about their role as like Black reporters, basically, of this league, and just general have a good discussion about this. So before we get into like the panel style talk, just a quick current stats. I did my best to count up how many Black players there are currently in the WSL, and I got 47. Apologies if I have missed anyone. This was just a quick count, and that's just under 20% of the total number of WSL players at this time, which I'm not going to lie, is a little bit higher than I thought it was. I don't know if that's just because based on like how many people we actually see playing uh, versus who's on the bench. But yeah, I was a little bit pleasantly surprised that it is that number. Obviously, it could be more given like the demographic of like where they play and where they can get people from. But 47 is the current number, it seems like. And I think Chelsea has the most at the moment with 8 active Black players. City is close behind with 7. And the least is Liverpool. Well, there's a few with 2 players only, which Everton, Liverpool, and Leicester. So Merseyside, something's going on there. uh, Besides players, though, the one kind of shocking thing is that there has been only one Black manager in the history of the league, as far as we are aware, and that is Hope Powell, who was Brighton's coach for a few years. I think it was 2017 to 22 or something like that. John Goder was like an interim manager for a little bit for Aston Villa, but just for head coaches, not interim, Hope Powell is the only one. So we'll discuss this, but yeah, that is definitely one area that things can like improve. Before I get to questions, what do you think of those numbers?
Um,
I,
I agree. I was similarly surprised about the proportion of players in the league that are Black, which is, as you wrote down, it's 20%, just under 20%. Which, yeah, that's much higher than I expected.
I also think that the point that you made about was like uh, about the perception of that being high is like, oh, like maybe it is actually higher than we think, but those players that are on rosters are not getting minutes on the pitch,
Mhm.
like, and that's still an issue within the league, and as far as like access to the sport of football goes in the quote unquote Western world.
I the one Black manager is definitely disappointing, but it is not a surprise because that is something that we also have talked about and contend with here stateside with NWSL, is figuring out ways to get more Black coaches the opportunity, because it's not a lack of none being available there, especially in the NWSL. There are plenty of Black assistant coaches, coaches getting their license that are involved in women's soccer. They just aren't getting the opportunities, and I would imagine it's a lot of the same in the UK as well. So that one doesn't really surprise me, but it is one of those where you're just like, okay, I'm not surprised, but I'm heavily disappointed because just having one at most, if you want to be, lenient and give Goddard the one for interim manager, that's still just 2 in the history of your
Mhm.
league. So that's not great.
Yeah, and Tom, to your point, whether or not we see them on the field, I feel like they're also not marketed as much as they could be, which is also partly why we don't realize that there are that many Black players in the league at this point. Okay, so we could just go like round table. I'll put out a question and then you guys can answer how you want. But I just want to start with you guys personally. When did you become a fan of football in general and a fan of women's football? And then how much influence did you have growing up? We start with Tom.
Okay, so I'm old. And 1999 influenced me heavily because let's just say I was old enough to have my driver's license in 1999. So for me, I remember that summer being so crazy, so magical, like watching all of these World Cup matches, being introduced to the voice of JP Dellacamera. And I obviously everyone remembers the final against China in the Rose Bowl. And I think that one of the more lasting images of that World Cup win for the United States was Brandy Chastain, like after she hit the penalty, falling to the ground with taking her kid off and celebrating. But before the shot, there was the save. And Mark, go ahead and put your chest out a little bit. Brianna Scurry was her for me. And I remember talking to my sister about how disappointing it was that, how exciting it was to see this group of women win this event in this fashion, and her saying that, and there's only one that looks like me. And I always remember that was a big deal. And I think that was really my introduction to football as world football as a whole. And I always followed the United States women's national team during very large tournaments. And then as I picked a Premier League team, I was oh, they also have a women's team, and started getting invested in that. And so I think that has kind of led my life journey supporting women's football globally.
And growing up, would you say you had any influence from your family, or were you one of the first in your family to start following football?
So I on my dad's side, yes, definitely. My mom, she's number 8 of 9 children, and she's from a city that I don't necessarily care to say that exists, but we'll just say it's on the opposite side of the state that I am. And it has a very rich history in the sport of soccer. And I know that her brothers participated in that. They were all soccer coaches. Hell, my uncle won 4 state championships at Oakville High School. So I know that I wasn't necessarily the first person to be into the sport in my family, or in the people that I knew, but I was the first one, I think, that was really looking for the women's side of it more than anything.
Nice. Thanks. Mark?
Yeah. So I would say, in terms of initial influences, it's similar for me. So I was born in 1989. Don't do that math. But no. So the 1998 and 99 World Cups are the first World Cups I can remember. And at that time I lived in Trinidad, right? And so for the 98 World Cup, Trinidad wasn't in that, but Jamaica was. And so that was a point of interest for me, is seeing the Caribbean on the grand stage, right? And the 99 World Cup, or during the 99 World Cup, I was actually visiting the US. And I didn't know at the time, but a year later I would be moving to the US. But so we were actually, we were in the United States. We were in Maryland when the final was going on. And watched one of the previous matches. I think the match against Brazil, U.S. versus Brazil, I'd watched. But I knew the final was on, and we were at a family friend's house, and it was like he was like the friend with the man cave that like everyone went to, and when he was like the hangout spot, right? So I don't know how or I guess what inspired me to, but I just put that game on and we actually all ended up watching it. And this was like not a particularly soccer watching crowd, which is interesting because it's like, my family's from Trinidad. Most of the people in that household would have been from Trinidad, but it was more like, unless it was the national team, most of those people would have been to like into like, including my dad, would have been to into like American sports, like football, basketball, so on. So, but yeah, we all sat down, we all watched it. I think we were all intrigued by it, and all of those moments that Tom recounted, definitely vividly remember the save, the goal, or the game-winning goal. You know, ripping the shirt off, the celebrations, all of it. One thing that always stood with me when after I moved to the US is like when I really think back on it, the biggest soccer star at that time was Mia Hamm. Undoubtedly. Mia Hamm was in Gatorade commercials with Michael Jordan. No men's players had that kind of motion at that time. I didn't I just and I definitely wasn't into soccer at like once I moved to the US, like most of my peers weren't into soccer, so I was like, okay, soccer's not really the wave. Let me learn these other sports. So I didn't really get into soccer myself until college. And then like 2006 World Cup, that's kind of where that started. But 2007 is when I actually went to college, and that's when the Women's World Cup was on. And that kind of like got me back into women's soccer, or I guess really got me into women's soccer, I would say, like in terms of a following aspect. Um, it's funny too, because one of the most infamous moments, came from that tournament, and it involved Brianna Scurry, uh, and Hope Solo disparaging her name. Now, at the time, I was kind of like, all right, I get why Solo's mad. I wouldn't have necessarily changed the goalkeeper either, but you don't do that. Like, even if you disagree with the coach and so on, you don't throw your teammate under the bus. Um, and yeah, so that was but that moment, and then 2011 World Cup, all of the drama of that World Cup and so on. That's when I really started like fully investing into the game, trying to figure out how I can follow the game more. I remember after the 2015, the US's triumph after the 2015 World Cup, one of the blog posts from Stars and Stripes was I for, I forget her name, and I'm so sorry that I do, but she basically made the point that like if you want to continue enjoying the U.S. Women's National Team and these triumphs, you need to like actually follow the sport on a week to week basis, follow these leagues, follow where these players play at, and so on. And so that I think there for me is when I started. At that time I was fully invested into Chelsea, and so I knew Chelsea had a women's team. So it's like, okay, how do I watch this? FA player, okay, sure, whatever. You know,
Miss you, girl.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
R.I.P.
You got us through some hard times. Yes, yes. But that for me, I think it's been a kind of a slow burn and slow build, but fast forward to where we are at now, where we're able to watch these games every week first and foremost, and follow it to the point where I would feel comfortable actually like talking about it, covering it, and so forth.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, the people in your family might not have watched soccer originally. Because my next question was, growing up, at least your childhood in Trinidad, how much were you exposed to like soccer and that culture?
That's the thing. If I had stayed, because I left Trinidad when I was 11, if I had stayed in Trinidad, I think I would have gotten into soccer sooner. Like my peers definitely would have been into soccer, right? Like, there's an old Manchester United player. He played for Aston Villa too, Dwight York, who's Trinidadian, and so like there were a lot of Man United fans, a lot of Arsenal fans as well. And I think one of the reasons why there were a lot of Arsenal fans was because of the blackness of that team, right? Like Thierry Henry, Ian Wright, so on, Vieira, right, and so on. So like I know a lot of Arsenal fans from Trinidad to this day, so um but yeah, because of when I moved, like I wasn't. So actually, when I started like getting into soccer myself, I was also like I'd reconnected with my boys in Trinidad, like my cousin and his friends. But it was also at that point that like the internet was good enough, basically, where you could like do Skype and eventually WhatsApp and so on. And so
Rest
like,
in peace to you too, girl. Miss
hey,
you, Skype.
listen, Skype. Hey,
Skype
y'all
had a
held this.
lead and they lost it.
They fumbled. They really truly fumbled. How did the pandemic happen and we didn't use Skype? What happened? That was your moment, Skype. Yeah, that's like I think the Trinidadian influence for me is like my cousin and his friends. Like we all watch soccer together. Like we gather in the group chat basically and watch the games together, kind of thing.
Cool, thank you. And Trev, finally, how about you?
I feel like I've been watching soccer the longest out of everyone here. Like that was one of the first sports I remember watching. For those that don't know, I am half Mexican, and so the first team that I ever watched was the Mexican national team. Like that was my exposure to soccer when I was like 5-6 years old. I started following European soccer shortly thereafter, probably around 97. Just around 7-8 years old is when I first saw an Arsenal match. This was back in the day where we would get games here in America on delay. Unless you paid like $500 to have the TV package to get like English soccer and cricket and like all the Euro sports, you would watch matches on delay. So I remember watching an Arsenal match and seeing Ian Wright and Dennis Bergkamp and just falling in love with that team. My first exposure to women's soccer was obviously the 99ers. I remember seeing that picture of Brandy Chastain all over Sports Illustrated magazine. RIP to them as well, since we're sending out shout outs to dead media. But this was back when you would get Sports Illustrated like every month. And I remember seeing that on the cover that year and being like, it was such a poignant moment in American sports where it's like everyone knew, even if you didn't follow women's soccer, you knew about it. And that was really the catalyst to get me into like looking into it and seeing that like Arsenal had a women's team. And so that kind of begun that. And I didn't really start focusing on women's soccer probably until the early 2000s. So like 2001, 2002. So, but since then, like it's just been my life. Like soccer was one of the first sports I played as a kid. So like I've been in this world a long time. And it's been really fun seeing it grow. I remember when the NWSL was the NASL, the North American Professional Soccer League and stuff like that. So like been around a while. But yeah, it's a very special thing following women's soccer. It's a lot different obviously than the men's side, but just the community of the people and watching it grow and seeing where we are now, like everyone has said, where we get games on live and there's 20 different platforms to watch them. And we have Champions League and we have She Believes Cup, which is coming up, and we just have all of these avenues to be able to follow all of these great players that we didn't have before. Like I said, I remember the days where I would have to watch Arsenal games on the internet and on the FA Player, and sometimes watch them months delayed just because we didn't really have that access here in America. But yeah, I've been following soccer and women's soccer in general for a long time.
One last shout out and RIP. Shout out Go 90. Rest in peace. He was
Go
good to
90
us
is
for the
another one.
NWSL.
That was another one. That brings back memories. I honestly missed the FA Player. Like I felt like that was, as janky as it could be at times, it was a consistent avenue to watch your team here stateside. And so I definitely miss it. We've talked about this before, even though it is on ESPN now, there are definitely times where you're just like, this is just as janky. And sometimes they don't even show all the matches. Like I couldn't even watch Arsenal Bristol City match because that wasn't televised here in America. I had to wait. It was like a flashback to old times. I had to wait 3 days and watch the match on YouTube.
Watch on YouTube.
And so it was like nostalgia
So
hit, where everyone was like,
none
"What
of
is
those
this
matches
life?"
were
And I'm like, "I
broadcast
remember
in the
this.
United
I remember
States.
this." Yeah.
And not that I love it. I know that the point of the FA tournament is to get fans to matches, and
Yeah.
I understand why I understand why they weren't broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean I have to love it, but I
Yeah.
understand the why.
Yeah. And I think just lastly, like, I think for me, as far as influences, like I am the second child of 4 on my mom's side, and I was the first to play soccer, but I didn't play too long, as I was, involved with like basketball, baseball, a lot of the American sports. But really what pushed my influence on women's soccer was my 2 younger sisters. They played soccer so much. Like, once I started playing it, they started playing it, and they played it for a long time through high school. And I was always involved with them, what they were doing. Sometimes I would help, be like an assistant to the assistant coach on their teams. I was always at practices. I was kind of just, doing what I can to stay involved in that world. And that was really what pushed me to follow women's soccer a lot more. And it led me to where I am now. So
I love that. Well, I guess that's a good segue. So, Trev, you said you played when you were younger, but didn't play for a long time. Did either of the two of you play football when you were younger? Or soccer?
No, I did not. No, that was not. That was not my thing.
Okay.
yeah.
American sports. And Mark?
I gave it a go when I was like 7 or 8, and yeah, it didn't really work out for me either. I ended up taking up cricket instead.
Okay.
That's
also
wild.
fun.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's awesome.
I can so see that.
That
though.
is wild. I made it as high as U12. That was it. That was
Nice.
the height of my footballing experience.
Peaks at 12. Okay, but so yeah, not a ton of playing experience, but obviously all of you are super involved in kind of following it and reporting on it and just like covering the sport. So real quick, I want you guys to like pub yourselves in terms of who you cover at the moment and how you cover it, and then we'll go into more of like what that experience has been being a Black man covering soccer. So Tom, we can start with you again.
I'm going to tell this story, and I don't know. I know I've told it a couple different times, and Kronk has told it. But when he was starting Shades of Blue, he interviewed all of us and was like, what do you know about Manchester City? What draws you to the sport of soccer? Whole lot of other things. And like, one of the things that I really wanted to make sure that was a part of any project was like, are you going to talk about the women's team? And he was like, oh, I don't think I really necessarily thought about that. But it was like, is that something that you would be? I was like, absolutely, that's something I'd be willing to take on. I don't think that you can, like, I don't think that if we're going to be a podcast of non-white people covering this team, we need to make sure that we are as inclusive as possible, and that means covering the women. And he's like, I think that that's a great idea, and I think that through that, it has allowed me to come into projects like this, where we get to talk about the WSL every week. It has allowed me to cover Kansas City Current as a correspondent for Shea Butter FC. And I think that to me, I think that that's one of the most like positive outcomes of for me is that as like I feel like I'm in this for like because I built a community, but and so I'm like representing the community that I'm a part of, and I think that that's what I really, really enjoy. I think what is still very apparent is that there is like some obvious like gatekeeping and bias, and it's wild to me. It's like how a women's sport can be such a good old boys network, and like trust me, no one knows that more than I do. um it's just it's so jarring, and it's so like it makes you think like, ooh, this isn't like necessarily like the best way. And I also understand that like just because like you put women in positions of power doesn't mean that like you will also be successful. I mean, before we started recording, we were talking about Trev was talking about how intentional Angel City was when they first started as a club, like making sure that there were women in high profile positions, and like I to varying degrees of success, right? And that would have been the same if it would have been men, right? Like so I think that um that kind of is my biggest drawback, is just like, God, it's just such a good old boys club. Like, and like, I mean, you see it like with like, okay, like, the way that Vlatko's face would light up every time that Jeff Kassouf was in town for a match, it's crazy, like crazy. Um, and like, that's one of the reasons why, like, if you think about all like the major news stories from Kansas City Current, like, have recently come from ESPN and Jeff Kassouf, like, it's like, yeah, there's a reason for that. And like, yes, people are going to have relationships like that, but like, it's just, I don't know, like, why do we have this good old boys club? Like, especially like when we talk about the legacy of the U.S. women's national team, um, bringing us to part of the sport is like part of their legacy is like fighting for equality and making sure that like there is access for women in sport, and not just in sport, but in everyday life. And here we are in this sport, like with, especially in this country, with this legacy of this team, and we are not honoring that appropriately.
Thanks for that. That's really good insight. Like you said, the community is there, but outside of the people in the community, they haven't been able to tap into it or seen the potential in it, which is obviously really disappointing. Okay, Mark, same for you. I know you're just say what you cover, and then obviously with the new Atlanta team coming into NWSL, I'm sure you're going to be a big part of that as well.
Yeah. Yes. So in terms of what I cover now, it's mainly it would be the WSL with y'all. And I like when Crunk hit me up about this idea, I was very excited about it. Like having a platform to be able to talk about um women's soccer formally. And when I say like I've been podcasting for years now, and I've tried to, in those spaces when it's appropriate, like talk about women's soccer as much as I can. So like for the culture, who shout out to them for this hoodie. But yeah, like places like that, where I've tried to make that contribution. And to be honest, I think my experience mostly with women's soccer is mostly as a fan to this point. I've always found it to be a more inclusive space. Like I just, even especially as an American soccer fan, I would say like I find the WOSO and the Broso spaces, as we like to call it, to be like almost night and day. Um, it just like the vibe, like um and really it's because of like I said, I've just always found it to be a more inclusive space. Certainly not perfect. We know, like, some of the dynamics that we see play out on and off the field. Some of the things that you guys have experienced, right? Um, but like I think about, for example, my experience at the 2022 NWSL championship in DC. Um, and like some of the people I was able to interact with, chat with, like Sills and Sky, Andre and Courtney from Diaspora United, they definitely stand out. But like even within our like circle of friends and peers, right, like you see I think a wide swath of representation, not just in terms of race but gender and sexuality as well, and I mean like on this very podcast, right? And so um I think that's something that is always like I feel a responsibility to like help protect and continue that legacy as I become more involved in covering the game myself. And yeah, like I haven't really started in terms of the the future Atlanta NWSL team. I haven't actually started like actively covering it yet, but I definitely looking to make inroads there. And so like the experiences of Tom and Treb, and really curious to hear what Treb has to say as well. Like for me, it's like I appreciate the insight basically, right? Because then it's like, okay, this is good to know going in, right? Like I know what to expect. Like I know maybe even prepare for certain situations, right? Like, yeah, like so and I've always been that kind of person who like observes before I like. It's like okay, make some notes here and there. So yeah, I just want to say like I really appreciate you know Tom and Treb for their contributions and continued contributions to women's soccer.
Yeah, amen. So that's a good segue. Like Treb, obviously you cover LA soccer, you cover Angel City, you cover LAFC. You've been in this game a long time. So for you, and I know off the podcast you've talked about it a lot, but as much as you want to say, what is your experience like as a black man covering both teams and covering it in LA? And then I guess I'll open it up to all of you as well. How does like the American sport or soccer, and we could say NWSL, um, environment compare to like you following and covering in a way like on socials and whatnot the WSL? But first, Treb, we'll talk about your experience.
Yeah, like Mark said, obviously we have this platform here where we cover the WSL, which is a lot of fun. When I was asked to do this, I immediately said yes, because if there's one thing I love doing, it's yapping, and being able to bring the WSL, to a lot of people here in America is a lot of fun. And also just to show people that follow the WSL in the UK that Americans are watching, and we're very knowledgeable about the league and we support the league and love it. But yeah, in terms of who I cover, like you mentioned, I cover LAFC. I started doing that in 2019 officially. And then I obviously, when Angel City came about, I was the first one of the reporters to cover that. At that time, I was with SB Nation when we had the big SB Nation network before that got gutted. And I also covered the U.S. national team for both men and women. So I'm
Shout out to
everywhere.
Box. Rest in peace.
Yeah, I'm everywhere. And Mark mentioned them earlier. I do cover the national teams for Stars and Stripes. I am a part of that group. So yeah, I've been here, not 10 years yet, so I haven't been too long, but I'm reaching veteran status in covering the league, and just I think, to me, the one thing that might surprise a lot of people, and I've talked about this in some of the chats that we have and off of recording, which is I can count on one hand the amount of black reporters that have been in the press box, including myself, since I started. For a place like Los Angeles, obviously we know it's heavily Hispanic. It's not a surprise that most of the reporters that cover that team are Hispanic. But in the now 6-7 years I've covered LAFC, there have been a total, including myself, there have been a total of 4 black reporters throughout that 7 years. On Angel City, it's a little bit different. I'm very fortunate. I have the lovely friends of ours at Shea Butter, Sills and Sky. They are often in the press box with me, and they it is a godsend having them, because it is so much more comfortable when you have that friendship and that culture there with you. I remember when Angel City started, And I was asked at the time by Alicia, who was running Angels on Parade with us at SB Nation. She was like, how involved do you want to be with this team? And I remember saying, like, we need to be with Angel City from the start. And so, like, even a couple years before they were official, like the moment they announced LA Club is happening, like I made sure I was at every event. I made sure I was at every, press conference they had, just everything, because I wanted them to know that we care. I wanted people to know that they can come to us for the coverage. And I was excited. Like I was excited to cover women's soccer. At that time, I was kind of shadowing the NWSL as a reporter because it was something that I wanted to get into. I just wasn't sure where I would go before LA announced their team. And then LA announced their team, and I was like, well, this is perfect. Like it's right here. I'm already here. We can do this. And then they kind of partnered with LAFC, and I was like, this is even better. I can just, I'm already here. And so yeah, it was a lot of fun. Like the others have mentioned, the vibes couldn't be more different. And I think it's not a surprise that it's been a good old boy network on the MLS side, because that's just the way it is in men's sports in general a lot of times. So I wasn't necessarily surprised at that. I was very surprised when it was happening with Angel City. But again, like Tom had mentioned, like I get it, right? Like you're a new team. You want as many eyes as you can. You're going to cater to the LA Times of the world. You're going to cater to the ESPNs of the world. But I will say it did take a few years. But one of the things that I'm very proud of is I am now in a position where I get a lot of respect from the people that work at Angel City. And, so like if any of them are listening, like I love y'all to death, because like it took a while. It took a lot of like effort, probably more effort than it took like an LA Times reporter would, like an ESPN reporter would, like an athletic reporter would, but it took time. But I am at a position now where they understand, like I'm here. I'm someone that's always there. I'm at trainings when I can get to them, even though they are literally 50 miles away from where I live. I am at every game. I think I've missed maybe 2 games in the several seasons that they've been here already. So I am at the point now where I'm getting a lot more respect, which is great, but there's still not enough Black reporters in the game. Like I said, it was for those that don't know, here in LA, LAFC recently had their home opener at the LA Coliseum, and there was probably 75 reporters. Of those 75 reporters, I was, quite literally speaking, the only Black reporter there.
God for
a game featuring the men's professional Los Angeles team and the men's professional Miami team. Again, I understand that those places are heavily Hispanic, but like, it's just and I don't want to like kind of get off into a tangent, but it is equally jarring when Sun Heung-min comes in the middle of last year for LAFC, and the press box is flooded with Korean reporters, and I'm still like the only Black reporter, and you're just like, where are our people? Where are the people trying to cover this sport for us? And it's a lot of the same on Angel City. Like I said, you take away Shea Butter, and I'd be the only Black reporter there too. So oftentimes that's how it is in this sport. Like it's the same when I cover the national team. I go to their games. There's a little bit more of us for that, thankfully. But yeah, it's definitely an adventure every time where you're just like, okay, like this is, and it's hard because, as we get more and more Black players, obviously, you see the way that they get asked questions. You see the way that they're covered. You see a lot of times how uncomfortable they are with some of the way that they are approached by other media. And then you get to ask them a question, and you see the way that their eyes kind of light up, and they're just like, okay, this person gets it, right? Like it's always great seeing someone who looks like you in a room. And that is the one part about this that I genuinely do love, is just getting to talk to like a Sarah Gordon, or getting to talk at NWSL Media Day, getting to talk to someone like a Croy, or some of the young players like Jamise Joseph, and seeing them light up at the prospect of like, okay, cool, here's someone who understands Black culture. Here's someone who isn't trying to make me look a certain way. Like there's just a certain rapport that you have with players in that regard. And so, yeah, it's definitely an experience, and hopefully it's something that we can change in the down the line. Getting a lot more Black reporters. I'm interested to see how it looks like for Mark in Atlanta. I would hope that there's a lot more Black reporters, but I wouldn't be surprised if there aren't, to be honest.
Well, that's a good point. Do you think it's like a lack of people in the pool of like reporters? Do you think it's just hard to like get to that point where you're able to like ask for a credential? Because that's another point that I want to make is like, besides the top dogs of like ESPN or whoever, SportsCenter, etc., like everything is on your own dime, right? Like you have to drive 50 miles each way to go and cover like a training, or like even farther.
Yeah.
All this stuff, like even your own blog, like everything is on your own. And so it's really hard, and like it's financially, for a lot of people, it might be financially like not possible to even start covering the sport. So do you think it's like a bit of both?
Absolutely correct.
Yeah. I mean,
that's absolutely correct. I think one of my largest fears is like coming into the press box and not to say that like I'm ill prepared, but like I'm like, this is essentially a job, like, and I know that people do this to make money, and like I am spending my money to do this, and like I think that there's a difference between like that and you can tell, and I guess this might just be different from place to place, like, but I know in Kansas City there's a lot of people who get credentials who are essentially fans of Kansas City sports first, which I can understand and relate to, and also treat their coverage of the team as like, glowing, flowery, all of this, like, and then there's not like there's not the necessary pushback on things, and then when you are the one that is initiating the pushback, those are always the first ones to tell you like, oh, you can't do that, you can't say that, why would you say that about the team, that's so crazy, like they're like the team is doing everything correct. It's like, no, like this is our job to like make sure that we are asking these questions and holding these individuals to account and these entities to account. And I think that one of the things that in like Sylv says this all the time, like women's sports is inherently political, right? So like, because like you're not like, women are not supposed to be in the space of competition unless it is for a mate. And like, that's really like how a lot of societies across the world see competition for women. And so when we enter into these spaces, we need to make sure that we are like treating these individuals like the professionals that they are. And I think that sometimes there can be a certain lack of that.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned before, I was a part of the SB Nation network under Vox, and then when that got gutted, I was, given the opportunity to continue Angels on Parade, but we're fully independent now, and a lot of that is maintaining, like, the cost to maintain it all. And fortunately, we're finally getting to the point where we're getting some money back, right? Like we're being profitable in some ways, but yeah, a lot of it, covering women's soccer in general, is just, for so many of us, it is a labor of love. Like it is something that we have to dig into our own pockets to do. Sometimes we can't be everywhere. I don't have an expense report to be able to travel to every away team like someone that works for ESPN might, or The Athletic might. I know on the women's side, it's fairly easy to get a credential, especially if you show the team that you're not just there to be a fan. I think that's also the problem, like Tom mentioned, where in LA, like there's a handful of people who have credentials who are there, and you kind of, I try my best not to judge people, but you also have to side eye them, because you're just like, I've never seen you write anything ever. I've never seen you produce content on this team ever. Like you're always just kind of here to be here. And so I think that needs to change, where it's like we need people in there that are going to actually cover the team in a way, right? It doesn't necessarily mean you have to write, but whether it's YouTube videos, whether it's podcasting, like you have to do something. I also think it's just a lack of, I think it's a lack of publications not giving us a chance to. And I'm trying to say this without calling out specific names, but like you look at, for instance, The Guardian recently that announced that they were coming into women's soccer in America and that they wanted to hire writers. And then you look at the writers they hired are all 3 white people or white facing people. And not to disparage them, but like 2 of the 3 are writers who maybe write once every 6 months. And one of the 3 is a person who doesn't really write about women's soccer at all. He comes from the men's side of things. And so, and I know I applied for that job and got pretty deep in the interview process. And I know a fellow of my colleagues applied for that job that were of color. So it's interesting that like those of us who have experience covering the women's side of things for so long, doing all these different things, having this podcast, covering a team in Los Angeles is one of the major markets on the planet, to still not really get a genuine look while people are being hired in from, outside of the women's soccer space that don't look like me. Like that is also an issue. We're just not getting the opportunities, and this happens, and I don't, like I said, I don't want to call out the Guardian specifically, but like I've seen it with the Athletic. Some of their hires, like you look at the people that they bring in are often not of color, and so I think that that's something that we continue to fight.
Or either they're not of color or they're just throwing Tamara all in our face, like
exactly. I was just
we
going to
love
say
Tamara.
that.
Don't get me wrong, Tamara's great, but like don't put that work on Tamara like that.
Yeah,
that's not cool.
But
at
even
all.
still, right? Like again, like not to call people out, but how many years did it take for Tamara to even get her name on the podcast that she co-hosts for several years? So, like that's what I'm saying. So like there's issues from some of these companies where it's just like we just don't get that respect. And like Tom mentioned earlier, like it is a good old boys network, and I definitely have some stories about that I'm not gonna put on record. Maybe one day I'll write a book about it. But like, yeah, like it's just a very network of people who I don't think genuinely love this sport, and they are coasting on the fact that they started becoming capital J journalists at a time where there wasn't many soccer journalists in general, whether it be men or women's side in the States. But I think now that women's soccer is growing, and you have a lot of people like myself, like Tom, like Shea Butter, like Tamara, there's a lot of people of color who are out there, like Riss over there in DC covering. Like there's just so many people of color out there now. If we can just get the opportunity, they would see that we can be valuable assets to their company. And not only valuable assets, we can get and tell stories that a lot of people don't even bother trying to tell. Because there's been several times where I've posted stuff on Angels on Parade, and I've gotten response from fans of the team and readers of the team where it's just like, thank you for talking about that. No one really mentions it. Like I said, I've earned a lot of respect with the team where they know I'm not going to be 100% flowery all the time. If I have to be critical, I'm going to do it, but they know it comes from a place of respect and from a place of love and from a place where it's like, I just want this organization to be the best that it can be. And that means sometimes I have to give you, critique, and that's just part of the job. And, but yeah, I don't think there's a lack of talent in the pool. I think what people don't know is there's a lot of talented Black writers out there that just aren't getting even a sniff of opportunity because these publications, like I said, they want to continue to reach for people that, write about soccer once every 7 months and write about men's soccer, or people who don't really follow women's game but will take the job because it pays well, instead of, trying to find people that are actually passionate about doing this.
Yeah, I think there's a fine line that, of like reporting on the game as a fan and also being, a capital J professional journalist. Like you need some of both. You need to have that passion to be able to like report on it, I feel like, truthfully and more cohesively. Okay, the next question is kind of a two-parter question. So one, how do you compare like the being a fan of an NWSL team against being a fan and like following the WSL, because obviously we're a WSL podcast, so we'll bring that in a little bit more. And then secondly, as a fan, how do you bring your culture and your like Black culture to football as a fan?
So I think, like, I think the biggest difference, like, in being a fan of an NWSL team versus like being a fan of a WSL team is just the being there. Like, there is something about the match day experience, like, and it's just unmatched. Like, even if you're going to a venue like as crappy as Broadfield Stadium with the bad drainage, like, like, there's still like some match day energy that's there, and like, and you get to see like sometimes, like, there will be things that you see in a live match that like the television cameras won't always pick up, that you're just like in awe of that play. It's like, did they really just make that 85-yard recovery run and then like block, like, block the ball off the line? Like, is that a thing? Like, just, I think that's the biggest difference, is that like you don't get that, like, you're not able to engage all of your senses necessarily in the match day experience when you're watching WSL play. Um, would I love to change that? Yes. Am I super jealous of Crunk that like he went to the Joy Stadium and watched that Champions League match? Absolutely, I'm super jealous of that. Like, and I like, if you ask him that, it was the highlight of his trip, because like that was the only win that he saw. So, um, uh, I don't know. It's just, there's something different about it that you can't really like explain necessarily, and I think that's the part of like WSL fandom that I hope to be able to achieve, I guess. Like, and just be able to go to those, like, when DP, when you were in London and you were saying that you were like, yeah, I'm going to these Arsenal matches, I'm like, I am so fucking jealous. Like,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Like, like, you're like one of the only people on this podcast that is like can say that they know what a match day experience in the WSL looks like.
Yeah. And the fact that it's just so easy to, you're right, it's so different. Um, uh, just to butt in a little bit, I don't have a local NWSL team, so for me, it's more difficult to go to an NWSL match just because it's farther away. So I think I've been to more WSL games now than I have NWSL, which is really funny. But you're right, like that, the match day experience is such a big part of being a fan, obviously. Um, okay, thank you. Yeah, and then second part of the question was how do you bring your Black culture to being a fan, Tom? You're muted. Say it again.
You see this drip? What are we talking about? That's what I bring. That's what I bring on. Like, so this is going to sound really cheesy and really corny, but I'm going to tell the story anyway. So, when I get nervous, I have to dress up. Like, I have to like wear really nice clothes just so like I can like feel like I'm doing the right thing. And so the first time that I ever went to a current match to cover the match, like, I was like, okay, I'm gonna wear a suit. And like, one of the things that I do to like calm myself in like situations like that is like, when my grandfather passed, as I was growing up, my grandmother would give me more and more of his old clothes that like I know that she picked out and like had like taken care of and all of that, like tailored and like cleaned and like with all of the mothballs and stuff all around it, so it didn't get eaten through or whatever. Um, so I wore a suit of my grandfather's that like um so I could calm down, and like, and I know that my grandmother told me that when she gave me that suit, it was like, I remember picking that out with your papa, and like, I had to tell the like, well, like I don't understand why you don't make pants with ass in them. Like, what do you think all the men with jeans, all the men like have flat asses? I don't understand. Um, but like that like helped me connect with um it helped me ground myself so that like now like when I go into the press box like everybody's like asking like, oh, what's Tom wearing today? What's Tom wearing today? Tom, what are you wearing today? Like if I don't start off a match day thread like that, somebody's like, oh, you did it wrong. Like you didn't tell us what you're wearing. So I think that's like one of the things that I feel like I bring to covering the sport.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And you're so right. If like guys follow Tom on Blue Sky if you don't already. Every match day thread starts with the fit. Thank you. Okay, Mark, how about you? How do you feel like a difference in the fan bases or just being a fan of either side, either league, and then how do you bring Black culture to the sport?
It's I was actually thinking about how I would answer this question. I just thought of this. So I'll so I'll kind of talk about something that we've talked about on here, right? Which is like the fandom in WSL specifically. So like okay, so like last year when things were kind of like in Jonas's final weeks, right? Things were on edge, people weren't happy and so forth. We saw and we there was the Jonas out was spray painted on the wall and what an uproar that caused, right? And how that goes against the family friendly environment that they're trying to create. And then recently it came out that so Chelsea recently played Arsenal at Stamford Bridge, and there was a lot. There were a lot of tickets sold. I think around 30,000 was the final number. Either way, like that's not a surprise because it was an Arsenal match, right? Like every club's biggest attended game, not named Arsenal, is when they play Arsenal, right? Like that's just how it is. But some of the first of all, Chelsea, like obviously, like we know what happened in that match. They lost 2-0. They played like ass and so forth, right? But also, there were a lot of in terms of Chelsea fans themselves. They were very unhappy about what was happening in the stands. The atmosphere, right? And one of the stories that came out was that there were uh, away fans sitting in the traditional home section, and when fans went to stewards and tried to be like, hey, these people are in our home section, like they need to be removed, they were apparently the steward told them, well, this is a family friendly atmosphere, so they should be allowed to sit wherever they want. Like that, if there is any, I don't think there's a clearer example of like the misunderstanding of what football fans and ultimately like sports fans want, right? And I think this is something that the WSL is particularly guilty of, is trying to promote and protect this family friendly atmosphere. The one exception of a club that does not do this is Arsenal, right? Like the way they engage their fans at a grassroots level and have over the years, right? That's why like Arsenal do well in terms of selling in terms of attendance. I think NWSL teams I think like the atmosphere of NWSL teams, like yeah, there is more of a family friendly atmosphere to it than like men's sports. But I don't think that most NWSL teams lean in that too hard. I've always gotten the sense that like okay, for example, with the supporters groups, um, like one of the things I really appreciate about NWSL is the role of the supporters groups, right? Not only during the match, in terms of providing atmosphere, but speaking up about important issues like protecting trans people, like uh, the ICE kidnappings, right, and killings, right? I feel like NWSL fans, to me, feel more empowered to talk about these things and use the platform of the matches themselves to, bring attention to these things. So, yeah, I think even I don't. I've attended a couple NWSL matches. I haven't attended any WSL matches, obviously. But in terms of like what I notice online, what I see in terms of watching the matches, like that, I think to me jumps out.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, and I think, what you mentioned about Arsenal, and I think all the WSL teams did this year. They started implementing even like you can bring beer into the stands, which was never a thing. Like even at men's games, you can't do that. But I think the way they rolled it out was really good in the sense they still have parts of the stadium that are tailored towards like the more family friendly. They're like, okay, those sections you can't bring alcohol, but then the supporters section and like I think even though like away stand area, certain places you can, and that like allows for the atmosphere that you want of like a proper football match where you're like you can get a little bit rowdy, like you can have both sides, like if it's a rivalry game, like you can have a loud away section, you can have a loud home section and just like go at each other kind of thing. And so I think you're right, they have rolled that out a little bit better in some stadiums than others. But there's definitely still like a sense of, oh, we need to keep it for the children and keep it family friendly. Okay, and then how would you say, what's one way that you bring your culture and Black culture to football as a fan?
Fashion sense certainly, but also like I would say just my perspective. You know what I mean? Like, and like the way I communicate certain things, right? So for example, like, I've often used the phrase like the get right game, getting right and so forth. Like I actually, I, I guess lifted that off of another Black podcaster, Bomani Jones, who is my personal favorite. But it's like, stuff like that. I feel like we have a way that we like make observations and talk about things and so on, then I think it's important that without I don't think any of us are corny or anything like that, but without veering into that, like being authentic to ourselves in terms of like just how we talk about this, and because I think that that's how we'll really be able to express how we feel about it, right? Versus trying to dress it up and make it for a certain audience. It's I think being true to myself is how I is what I bring to the covering the game.
Yeah, that's a great answer. All right, Treb, your turn. Same questions.
Yeah. I mean, kind of like everyone has said, I think with the WSL, you still have this image that they want to kind of like, kumbaya, everybody together. Nobody is too angry at each other. Which I totally understand. You do want to have a family friendly atmosphere to a degree. And, but at the same time, like sports inherently comes with kind of that, that aggression with it, kind of that edge to it. It's something that the NWSL has leaned into a lot over the last few years, which a lot of us like. Because I remember early on in the NWSL days,
There is nothing better in sports than like watching two people who don't like each other compete against each other. Like Amy Rodriguez and Lindsay Horan Heaps will live in infamy forever because they don't like each other, not even a little bit, not even at all.
But that's what I mean. Like I can remember the days when the NWSL was first starting out, and they were trying to do that whole like, we're nice to each other. This is different than the men's game. Like we're all together, and that went out the window fast because they realized nobody wanted that. And you look at it now. I mean, you have teams like Gotham who have their social media talking spicy. You have Orlando whose social media talks spicy. Angel City very much make it clear they don't like San Diego. You have these rivalries that they are not afraid to publicly say, like, yeah, we do not like them. We want to beat them. We want to be physical with them. I mean, you have matches like Tom mentioned where players are physical with each other. There's a lot that happens. And then in the NWSL, and a lot of us, that's why we've kind of adopted this whole, CONCACAF is different because that's the federation around where we are here, where it's like CONCACAF is different. We play by a different set of rules. I think that's why a lot of a lot of us who watch the NWSL kind of laugh when someone comes from Europe to the NWSL. The first thing that they notice is just how physical it is out here, because it's very much a no blood, no foul kind of league, and that extends to the fandom in a lot of ways. Like, it's not rowdy, there's not a lot of fights the way there is on the men's side sometimes when you get these rivalries, but there's still, like I said, there's a lot of shit talking, there's a lot of spiciness. I think when in terms of atmospheres, it's a bit similar with the WSL, where you have some teams that do really well, and then other teams that still have work to do. Like, you look at, like, in Angel City, like, they, for the most part, can sell out their 22,000 seat stadium, and they put on a show every time they have a match, and it's like a party atmosphere. And even for the big ones and for the rivalry ones, like, it feels like very much like a party. Like, you have smoke grenades going off, and you have fireworks before, and it feels really great. And I see it from afar, in the same with the WSL, where you have a team like Arsenal that can get a lot of players or a lot of people in the stands, and even City, even though that their stadium isn't huge, they got their own new stadium there, and they fill it out really well. They have great support. So, but I think that's the key difference is just the WSL right now, I feel like, is trying to present this image that everyone likes each other, everyone is happy. Even though we're on different teams, we're still together in this. And I don't know why they're doing that, because I'm telling you right now, for the most part, like, what really sells and what really gets people going is that edge to it. But then again, like, I don't know, like, Deepti would speak better to this because she was over there with the fans. Like we mentioned earlier, I can remember when that Jonas painting came out, and there was a lot of Arsenal fans that were like, this is too far. You've done too much. Like, this is dangerous to the players' lives. And I had to kind of giggle at that, because it's just like, here in the, like, that is so
I will say
that is like so tame compared to what we do here. Like, and we don't get aggressive here, but like, fans here will boo you relentlessly as you leave and enter the pitch. Like, fans here will be on your social media page, and like, maybe that's a little bit too far, but like, you know what I mean? Like, fans, like, there's when fans are displeased about something, they make it known. Like, they will have signs in the stadium that are like, get the fuck out of our club, like, leave, like, you are not welcome here. Even if you're winning this game, we're still gonna boo you because we do not like you anymore. So I thought that was kind of funny. But what were you gonna say, Deepti?
Yeah. To be fair, I think a lot of what you see, and like, obviously what you've seen is online. I think that's the online fans, because see, me in person, like, I've been to a couple of like the supporters group like events and whatnot, and they had the same sentiment. It's like more similar to what you see in the NWSL side. Is there like, people will obviously like trash talk, people will like be a bit more, have more of that edge, right? But I think it was really funny what you mentioned about the social media teams, because now that you say that, I don't recall any like WSL social media teams being even a little bit spicy. Like, the only thing you get after the derbies, right?
You see it between Arsenal and Chelsea. You see it between Arsenal and Chelsea. They'll send like subliminal shots at each other.
London is red or Manchester is blue. Like, you don't get anything more than that. And I was like,
sometimes you'll get a little subliminal shots, but like, yeah, like, it's very subtle. Whereas like, here in the NWSL, like, you'll get Gotham that'll like tag Orlando and be like, so what'd you think of that win? You know what I mean? Like, they will very much go at each other, right? Like, so that's always a lot of fun.
That's what.
But yeah, I would hope we see. Yeah, like, sports inherently is fun, and competition, especially at the highest level, comes with a level of aggression and a level of, I don't like you. Like, yeah, we can be, I mean, we saw it in the Arsenal City game, right? Like, Beth Mead and Viv Miedema are two people everyone knows are very close with each other. And, there were several times where they came together in the match, like, physically bodying each other. And it's just like, this is the way it is. Like, you come in between these lines, all of that other stuff goes out the window, and we're playing soccer and we're doing it at a high level. We both want to win. We're on different teams. That's just going to happen. It is what it is. And so I think that needs to be embraced more from a administrative side, where the league just needs to understand they can be successful and allow these teams to show personality, because especially in the modern age of sports, I think that's what fans want. They want their teams to have that personality. They want their teams to kind of show that bite. They want their teams to be human, not just robotic, not just like, you know, typical corporate speak all the time. And then
Every
just
winger in the league hates Katie McCabe. I know that.
yeah,
I know
listen,
that.
yeah,
And it's not like we're getting like, oh, like if there was a winger that stepped up and been like, man, I'm gonna smoke her, I'm gonna nutmeg her, like
yeah, we want that.
she gonna have to get too like invested watching that match immediately, like
Right?
because it's compelling. Like those are the types of things that draw us to sport as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
and like I want to see. That's the sort of thing that I want to see.
Yeah. Anytime players talk, I'm ready for it. I'm like, yes, talk the smoke, get the smoke. I mean, it's what makes, the men's side so fun in the Premier League, where you have, that player from Aston Villa sitting there doing the 1, 2, 3 points in the pocket. And immediately after Arsenal beats them, you have Gabriel doing the same exact thing. And it's like, that's what we want. We want people being petty. Like Gabby beats Tottenham. Like he has a infinite beef with Richarlison right now, where it's like, every time he gets the better of them, they're like going at each other on social media. Like we love that kind of thing. And we need to see that in the WSL. And then just like real quick on the second part of that question, I think it's obvious the part of the culture that I bring is the jokes. I listen, I am the one that is going to run the dozens. I'm the one that's going to be, I will play, the loud black man role to a degree. I think everyone knows that on here. Yeah, like Mark said, it's just about being true to who I am. Like I love talking shit. I did it when I played sports. I do it as I cover sports. Like it's fun to me. The banner, the shit talk, that's never going to be not fun. Even when I hate it, when my team is losing and I got to deal with it, like it is what it is. Like I'll take it on the chin and we move. But that's what I bring in terms of my culture. Like I just bring, it's all jokes. I love to laugh. I love the jokes, as you all know. Like I walked in here with the crown on my head when we won the Champions League, right? Like I'm gonna do me,
Yeah, and we love you for that. Don't ever change that. Okay, a bit more of like a serious topic now. This has become a bit of a hot topic in the NWSL at the moment, even though it really shouldn't be. But several teams have like opted to have a match day dedicated to the Black community. Here in the States, June 19th is Juneteenth. So often if they have a game in June, they will have a Juneteenth specific match or match dedicated to that. However, this year, because there's a break in June for the NWSL, there are no home games during that time. And so now what has come up is that as teams release their list of themed match days, we're seeing which ones have like quote unquote rescheduled, or like which ones have actually still put like a Black Excellence match or any other match dedicated to celebrating the Black community. That's on the NWSL side. In the WSL, so in England, the Black History Month is in October. So the WSL season is ongoing in October. And several teams do like a Say No to Racism campaign. They don't necessarily have anything celebrating Black culture. It's more like, okay, no more racism. It's a bit more on like the serious side of things there. But I just want to ask you guys, do you think those are even effective measures? And I guess you can compare both sides, like having more of like a celebratory match in the NWSL versus having one in the WSL where they'll all come out with, Say No to Racism shirts, do the kneel before kickoff, et cetera, et cetera. One, yeah, do you think those are effective measures? And then two, how else would you like to see like teams and clubs show up for not only the Black players, but the Black fans as well?
The amount of times that we have had to come on this show and talk about some racist bullshit going on just specifically in the WSL alone, I'm going to say that no, the Say No to Racism campaigns that WSL teams are doing is not enough. Also, compliments to all of you. I think that those are some of our best episodes, to be quite candid, like because I think that we really like get to the heart. Even like episodes where like I'm tired of talking about this and I'm not going to address it anymore. Like I think that even that speaks volumes. I think in the ways that the teams need to show up for their Black players and fans. I think like using those Black players in marketing, in promotions, and like, you know, making sure that like, oh, well, like, I mean, I know that we've talked about like the number of like players, particularly this season, that like are on the last 6 months of their contract, right? Like, well, maybe like let's make sure that like those are not our Black players doing that. Like that could be a real simple thing. So then that you could promote them, like, because like because yeah, you're gonna feel stupid if like, oh, you know, like I would promote Bunny Shaw, but I know that Bunny Shaw is leaving at the, you know, like not to say that I know that this is happening, completely hypothetical. God, I hope it's hypothetical. But you know, like if you know that you already signed her, like that just means like, oh, you know what, we can use Bunny in all these promotions. Like, as a matter of fact, we should be using Bunny in all these promotions. You know how many times that she's led the league in the Golden Boot since she's like been here? Like almost damn near every year she started. Like that's crazy. So like just to that earlier point about the DP that you said about not marketing Black players, like that could be a real quick fix for a lot. Like and just making sure that like you are like putting those players out there, like because they're athletes and like top level athletes will sell. I don't want to step on Rissa's shoes because I know that she's doing a project around that, and I might help her contribute on that. So I am gonna withhold my feelings on the Juneteenth or Black Excellence matches in our domestic league. But like that is I've given my opinion about the WSL and their Say No to Racism campaign.
Thank you. Mark?
Yeah, I would say specifically the saying no to racism campaigns. Yeah, they've had their effect, right? Like I think that's the type of thing that's like you do once, maybe twice, and then like after that you have to come up with something new, right? And I think I would also add like cuz I think you know Tom already made some good points, but you know one of the things about messages like that where it's like don't do this, you know, it's like that's not necessarily an effective message, you know? Like it's almost and like you kind of want to like just from a pure teaching standpoint, right? Like saying don't do this or saying no to that is not as effective as things you can do, right? And so I would one suggestion I would have for WSL teams is using these matches as opportunities to educate their audience, you know, maybe about Black players that have represented the club, you know, or you know maybe Black people who have contributed to the club. You know, some people, you know, who might, for one reason or another, like are important to the existence of that club. Um, you know, I know that fan activations is like a big part of like the WSL experience, right? I know something that's club's been doing more. I don't know if you actually ever attended one, Deep T.
I did not.
Okay. But you know, I think something like that cuz that's supposed to be like a boots on the ground type of thing, right? So you know, like more black black led or black focused fan activations, you know, maybe especially in terms of like locations. Um and also, I think one thing that clubs could be doing more as well is in terms of building up how they build up their academies, like who are they scouting? You know, like are they going? Are they ever seeing or identifying Black players? Are they scouting from areas where that tend to be blacker? You know what I mean? Because I know, and I'm genuinely curious because I know that that's something that historically has been an issue in the U.S. on the men's and women's side. So I think those are probably areas that clubs could improve in, invest in, kind of like explore, I guess. But yeah, going back to the original thing about the say no to racism, I just think they need to evolve their message now, right? It's like, okay, what can we do? And also in terms of like the merch thing, like if let's say you have a match where there's this special, warm up jacket or whatever, you know how clubs love to sell shit, right? So maybe use that as an opportunity to sell some shit and then donate it to, like an organization, or invest in some like we've kind of covered about how in general in the UK they're trying making more grassroots efforts to identify young girls to grow into the game. That's certainly an opportunity to get more black people overall in the game. So yeah, I would say probably that's where clubs could focus.
Yeah, I think, you make such a good point. And for me specifically, like if you look at the 12 teams currently in the league, 5 of them are based in London. And like London is so black. There is no excuse for any of like specifically those teams to not, have something dedicated or have like an activation, like you said, or something, anything a bit more than what they do. Like, I don't know. Maybe some will argue, oh, okay, Liverpool, we just like noticed they have the least number of black players. Maybe that area is not super black, but like they could still do something. They could learn from the others. Maybe they could do it at like the away match, like partnered with one of the teams in London. But I'm like specifically in London for having so many London teams in the league and for like having that demographic in London. I think that is definitely something they can do and is something important that they should definitely work on. Okay, Trep, how about you?
I'm trying to like think of how real I want to get on this. I think the Say No to Racism campaign is something that needs to go away. I mean, we see it here in America in the NFL. Like it is what we call performative at this point. I'm tired of performative acts. I think, which I think is fair, kind of being a black man in America. Like I'm tired of all of these initiatives and things that teams want to try to do to make it seem like they actually care, especially when they are presented with being able to actually show tangible work. And what I mean by that is I still think about last season, when at her own stadium, when she played Arsenal, Bunny Shaw was given racial abuse from her own fans because at the time City weren't playing well and she had a bad match and they were upset. And at her own home stadium, she's dealing with racial abuse. And her manager, Gareth Taylor, at the time said nothing about it. Her teammates didn't come to her defense publicly about it. The only one that did come to her defense publicly about it, ironically enough, was Arsenal players, specifically Lottie Women-Moy. She was like the first one out on it, being like, that's unacceptable. And obviously the league at the time didn't say anything about it. And that is where I think the change needs to happen. We need to do away with some of these useless campaigns and these pretty words and taking a knee and these black squares on Instagram. Like all that shit is meaningless if, when actual racism happens, you're just like, oh, well, I don't want to talk about it. I don't see it. You know what I mean? If you're not willing to have these hard conversations, then nothing else you do is going to really move me at all. So I think what we need to see change is just the league taking these issues seriously. And you can start by like, there's millions of cameras everywhere now. I'm sure that they can find some of these people that do these, that spew out racial abuse, ban them. Like that is the easiest way to start making change. Like just ban them, show them that their presence is not needed. Their money is not wanted. They can find other things to do on match days. They don't need to be around civilized society. I think that's the biggest issue that I have with it. And then just kind of in terms of like how different teams can do it. Like
and
I think that
publish
is
their IP addresses.
Yeah, well, listen. I'll let you talk about doxing people. I try not to say that. I be thinking it. But yeah, like, I mean, but like, no, like Tom is right. Like, these people need to be publicly shamed. And that's something we do here in America, where it's like, we'll find out real quick who's, oh, this lady on the internet was caught saying the N-word. Like, now we have her entire job history and where she lives and where her information, like, and these people get called out and it works. They get fired and they lose, and it is what it is. Like, they chose this, to say the things that they say, and things have consequences and they need to face them. And I think the WSL needs to do better in showing that, for sure. I know they're, again, like we talk about the jokes and stuff. Like, I know the joke around Arsenal is like blonde FC and, not a lot of players of color. But I think one thing I am incredibly proud of with Arsenal is that they do lean into their Black community a lot. Like, whether it be the men's side or the women's side, like, they are always one of the first clubs to talk during the UK's Black History. And, they recently ended their sponsorship with Visit Rwanda, because of the tone and connotation that it has. This is a club that very much, like, we talked about it before recording. Like, you look at a lot of the Black players in the league now, and just go look at where they started. Look at where they got their start and whose academy it was. And a lot of times it's from the Arsenal Academy. So they may not do well at retaining them, but they are one of the few clubs I feel like does really well at scouting these young Black players, at giving them the opportunity. Obviously, now they have Michelle Ajemain. They have Viviane Leah, who's out on loan. Like, they have a lot of talent coming through London Colney and what they do. And so I'm always really proud of Arsenal for that. But I think a lot of clubs can do that. Like Deepti said, there's 6-7 clubs in London, it feels like. And a few big ones, Chelsea are there, Tottenham are there. These are teams that have the resources, they have the profile, they have the name. They could easily help make a change. And I think that you need to get the clubs on an individual level working towards making a change before I think the league will understand, okay, as a whole, we need to do something. And again, like, it's something we see here in the States with NWSL. Like, this is a league that a lot of times lets their players down, especially when it comes to racial abuse and sexual orientation and stuff like that. But it's because a lot of the individual teams are so quick to step up in their own way that the league then feels like, okay, we do have to make these changes and try to set these parameters and get guidelines and get all these things and protocols and stuff like that, because we do have a league full of teams and ownerships that want to improve, and the WSL needs to do the same thing. So campaigns are always, I guess, nice, right? Like, I get it. It's what's kind of the trend, but like I said, I'm tired, especially when you have players receiving racial abuse and everyone goes silent when it happens. So you can keep your say no to racism, because apparently you're not saying no yourself. So
That man questioned why that lady didn't show up to work the next day, and that's all that you really need to know.
It was so bad that Bunny Shaw had to be like, I need to take a step back because I'm getting so much abuse right now. That is bad. And again, like, when your rival, essentially, Arsenal, when it's Arsenal players who are coming to the forefront before your own manager, before your teammates, like, how does that make you feel? Like, I know as a Black person, that would make me feel like shit. Like, you guys are supposed to be my family. You're supposed to be the ones that have my back. I'm out here putting my body on the line for y'all. And you can't even take the time to use your platform to be like, hey, don't say dumb shit about my sister. Like, that to me showed me everything I needed to know, kind of about what the environment was like under Gareth Taylor over there and what it is like in the WSL, right? Like, again, you can't have one club trying to lift everybody else up. You know what I mean? Like, it can't always be on Arsenal. It can't always be on us to kind of set the tone. Like, we need everyone else to step up. So
one more point I want to add to all of you, what you said, is that I think in the WSL, especially, the supporters groups can play a big role in this. And I didn't interact with much of them, like even the Arsenal one, but I will say I think what I found a little bit surprising is that even when I did go to some of like the Arsenal supporters group stuff, like, it wasn't necessarily the most welcoming. and it is predominantly white. A lot of like the main supporters groups of these clubs, you'll have like little offshoots of whatever, but I think it's on them as well to be more welcoming, to have more of like a diverse representation of the fan base too, and just like you can have little pop-up events, or you can like have your own merch line that, like Mark said, sell some merch and donate it to a good cause, or donate it to like the Black community, something like that. um it, every little bit of like, whether it's the team, the club, the supporters group, all of them can play a role, and like in making it better and more welcoming space for Black people, I think. Okay, thank you for that. That was really important, I think, to get your experience and all of that and your thoughts. Now for a little bit more lighthearted stuff. Rapid fire. I'm just going to go around again, starting with Tom. Favorite current Black player and favorite former Black player. You can say, it doesn't necessarily have to be WSL, just in general. Tom, we'll start with you.
Current, Bunny Shaw. Former, Brianna Scurry.
Brilliant. Mark.
Current Lauren James. I was gonna say Brianna Scurry. I'm gonna say somebody else. World Cup champion Shannon Box.
Boom. And Treb.
I'm gonna say current right now is Olivia Smith. I wanted to say Bunny, but like the way Olivia Smith has been playing right now, she's quickly becoming one of my favorite players. And then former, it's Alex Scott. Like I can remember watching her when she was coming up through Arsenal's ranks, and yeah, big inspiration.
Okay. Amazing. And then that will lead into this. I asked you guys to think about this leading up to this episode, but basically, I want you guys to give me an all-Black starting 11. I think you guys decided you're going to focus on players who played in the WSL, could be current or former. So I guess it can be, you can all jump in whenever you want, but we'll start with Tom as well. Starting 11 and manager as well.
Okay. So we're playing a 3-5-2 between the sticks. I have Kiera Keating. She's my baby hair queen. She's always going to have a, hold on my heart. My defenders, I'm going to have Alex Scott, Naomi Girma, Mary Phillip. My midfield is on the two edges. I'm going to have Sandy Baltimore and Crystal Dunn. Then doing the box-to-box work, I'm going to have Drew Spence and Anita Asante. And then pulling the strings for all of that, I'm going to have Caroline. And then up top, I'm going to have Rachel Yankee and Bunny Shaw. And my team is managed by Hope Powell.
I think we'll see a theme there. As we mentioned, she was the only Black manager in the league's history. Okay, anyway, Mark, what's your starting 11?
Yeah. So there's gonna be some repeats. But this ended up being a 4-4-2. At goalkeeper, I have Rebecca Spencer. She's a league veteran, played for a number of teams, including our teams. Backline. Oh no, yeah, this is different. So right back, Alex Scott, center backs, Naomi Girma, Jess Carter, and I'm glad I have an opportunity to talk about Jess Carter because, speaking of players who received racial abuse, Jess Carter from her own fans, quote unquote, Jess Carter during the Euros, a Euros that England ended up winning, but they were struggling early on, and yeah, she Jess Carter opened her Instagram DMs to racist abuse, and she spoke out about it. And it was just really, like, I commend her a lot. I have this article up from The Guardian when she was awarded the, what was this? It was, doesn't say. Oh yeah, that's right. Guardian Footballer of the Year. That's right. And obviously a big part of it was because of what she experienced and her speaking out. And the point that she made is that she didn't want to do that, right? And I think that that's something that a lot of us feel and have expressed. It's like we don't want to talk about racism, like we don't want to talk about these unpleasant things. We just want to enjoy the game. But yeah, shout out to Jess Carter for being who she is, and for I included her in large part because she was an important player for Chelsea for a number of years. I also included Chloe Sarwi, who is Chelsea's newest player. She is recently turned 17 years old, and she's listed as a left back. But we talk about black players. I mean, sorry, yeah, these clubs like identifying black players from a young age, and here we have an example. I don't know Chelsea's history of bringing black players through the academy, but I would just say I wouldn't be surprised if she's like one of the first, right? Just because like Chelsea doesn't necessarily bring that many players through, and even if they do, like they don't necessarily end up having an impact to the club because Chelsea signed so many players. But yeah, I just wanted to give shout out to Chloe. Midfield, same as Tom. Anita Sante, Drew Spence holding it down in the middle. On the wings, I have Crystal Dunn and Eni Aluko. I felt it was important to just mention Eni Aluko somewhere because she was kind of a trailblazer in her own right for Chelsea, for the England national team. She was one who would be willing to say the things that other people weren't willing to say. She has, ever since she retired, she's kind of gained a different reputation in terms of being outspoken. But there was once upon a time where her outspokenness was effective. So I just wanted to, I think that people like her, they often get overlooked in history, and I think that she does deserve to be mentioned for her playing contributions. And up top, I have Bunny Shaw and Nikita Paris, and I just felt it was important to highlight Nikita Paris, a top 5 goal scorer all time in WSL. She's still playing. She's played for everybody. She's a league vet. Like, I wonder if there was a Hall of Fame, what hat would Nikita Paris wear? Because like, does she just wear the WSL hat like Rob Lowe?
Oh, go full Rob Lowe? Yeah, absolutely. Except it's the beret with the WSL logo stitched into it.
Yes. And I hate to make Hope Powell work double job, but she's got to be the manager of my team too.
Hope Powell, all-time manager for all of us. That's just who she is. Like when you play pickup football, you're just like all-time quarterback. Like she's the all-time manager.
All right, Trev, give us yours.
I mean, yeah, let's start there. Hope Powell's my manager too. Surprise. So at goalkeeper, I got Kara Keating, much like Tom. I'm running a 4-1-2-3, and I think you're going to see a theme with the way that I'm going to be playing. It's going to be a lot of speed and a lot of attacking. So at the back, at left back, I'm going to be putting Jade Riviere, which is, I think, a solid pick, because at right back, I'm going to have Alex Scott, obviously. My two in the middle are going to be Naomi Girma, and I'm going to have Taylor Hines play center back. She's actually played center back before. She's really solid. She's a solid defender, has the speed to kind of track back. In that one spot, in the defensive midfield spot, I'm going to have Mary Phillip, Arsenal legend. And then on the two ends, on the right side, I'm going to have Lauren James. And on the left side, I'm going to have Jessica Nas, which I think is going to be deadly as hell. And because their link up is going to be on the right side, I'm going to have an attack on the right side. I'm going to have Rachel Yankee, who one of the first women's players that I was absolutely adored watching Arsenal. On the left side, I'm going to have Alyssa Thompson. And up the middle, I'm going to have Bunny Shaw. So good luck keeping up with my team. I'm coming for goals, and more goals.
I'm actually going to change my manager just to like really lean into the bit. My manager is actually going to be Seb Hines. Thank you very much.
He's not WSL though. That's the problem.
According to
according to
Google,
But
Google,
he
I'm
might
just
be.
leaning into the joke. That's all.
Yeah, according to Google. Yeah, that's still crazy. Just full disclosure, we Googled black WSL managers, and the first result was Seb Hines. So
Yep.
there you go.
Okay, thank you guys for that. I can see your vision, Treb. I guess fun
Yeah, speed.
question. Which of your 3 teams is winning the league?
I feel like it's mine, right? Like
Well,
it's either me or Tom.
first of all, like how like what Bunny Shaw is going to have to do for all 3 teams? Like, dog. Like,
But see, this is why I have who I have.
She's all-time
like,
striker. Shit.
Hey, listen, she is. I think historically she's one of the best WSL players, period. But especially when you talk about black WSL players, she is absolutely one of the top 3 of all time, like for sure.
That man said that she needed to sit behind Ellen White so she could learn some things.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I can't. I just can't.
Insane lack of ball knowledge. That is insane lack of ball knowledge. But yeah, I think mine, like I said,
Yeah.
Even if you want to take Bunny Shaw out, I still have Rachel Yankee up front. I still have Alyssa Thompson up front. Like I have Lauren James and Jess Nas on the sides. I'm attacking you with Alex Scott and Jade Riviere. Like I have Naomi Graham up the middle. Like, what are you doing? I have Mary Phillip in defensive mid. Come on, guys. You're not scoring on me. You're not keeping up with me, first of all. My entire team is outrunning everybody.
My midfield, though, is so crazy. Like, Drew Spence is good for one. She's good for one.
Yeah.
Like, and that could be one stellar defensive play. That could be one stellar goal. That could be one great entry pass, one key assist. It could also be one crucial foul. It could be one debilitating giveaway. It could be one inexplicable red card. So, like, my midfield is just a mystery box. That's why I love it.
Yeah, fair.
Okay, this was starting 11. Were there any players on the cusp? Like, if you had a bench?
Oh, I feel like we all have a lot of players on the cusp.
Top 2.
Yeah, Nikita Paris is my first off the bench, like for certain.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
Lauren
I would
James
have to say
definitely.
Nikita Paris for me too.
Lauren James would definitely be in my squad for sure. Lauren James and Alyssa Thompson, actually.
I would have Jess Carter as a sub for defense, just to have that, just in case I need someone a little bit more physical to pair with Naomi Grima and not as finesse as Taylor Hines, right? Like just to get that aggression in there.
my defender substitutes, Demi Stokes and Khadijah Buchanan. Like that, yeah.
And I will say too, like just to give Bunny Shaw a break, right? Like if we wanted to give her a break for running all of our teams, like I'll throw in Michelle Adjemaine in the front, and I still feel like I'll do some damage. Like a healthy Michelle Adjemaine at striker with the rest of the team I have would probably be deadly as hell. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you guys. We will try to make a graphic of each of these and post it somewhere, just so you can see the actual lineup visually. And then obviously, if y'all want to interact with us, give us your starting 11. That would be wonderful too. That's all the questions I had. Thank you guys so much for playing along and answering all of these and giving us just your view on all of this. I just want to open it up one more time. If there's anything that you want to say just to close us out.
I want to thank you, Deeply, for kind of taking this on and making this idea come to life. And this has just been a great way to celebrate the end of Black History Month. So I just want to say thank you. This has been obviously I enjoy all of the podcasts that we do, and this one's just been special. So thank you.
Yeah, very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the last thing that I'll say is a big reason why I did like this podcast, because it's, we've talked about before where women's soccer can often be like the good old boys network. And I think a lot of times, I can't speak for Tom and Mark, but I know myself, being a man of color, understanding that I am a man in the women's sports space. So I always try to kind of give room to the women journalists out there and like, you know, let their voices be like, I try not to put myself in women's business a lot of times. And I think that that's something like an awareness that not a lot of non-colored journalists men have in this space. And so doing something like this was fun because it was just like, okay, a chance to kind of give our thoughts in a way that didn't feel like we were stepping on any toes. So thank you for that.
Of course. And you're right, Tom. This is one of my favorite episodes that we've done. I feel like I learned a lot from you guys as well and just got more insight into how, like, why you are the way you are. And, like, I love it. And, like, that's what makes this group so great. Like, it just, yeah, I feel like this works so well. But anyway, thank you guys. Thank you all for listening. As always, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Hit that follow button to stay up to date when new episodes drop. Leave a rating and a review if you can. We would love to hear your feedback. This was a very special episode for us, so I hope you listened all the way through. There are 12 teams, 6 games, 4 hosts. You're listening to the 12. We'll see you next time.